Kim, and I'm here with Juji, Taras, Lee, and Shira. We are 5 friends, speakers, and professionals from different cultures, backgrounds, and age groups coming together to offer healing and inspiration. When you think of being vulnerable, whether it's with your family, a colleague, or even a friend, does it feel like a strength or weakness to you? As a society, we are only now learning about the correlation of vulnerability to what Dr. Brené Brown calls wholehearted living. According to her research, we cannot live wholeheartedly until we learn to embrace vulnerability. Before we dive into today's discussion, let's take a look at what Brené has to say about wholehearted people from her incredible TED Talk.
Okay. The other thing that they had in common was this. They fully embraced vulnerability. They believed that what made them vulnerable made them beautiful. They didn't talk about vulnerability being comfortable, nor did they really talk about it being excruciating, as I had heard earlier in the shame interviewing. They just talked about it being necessary. They talked about the willingness to say, I love you first. The willingness to do something where there are no guarantees. The willingness to breathe through waiting for the doctor to call after your mammogram. The willing to invest in a relationship that may or may not work out. They thought this was fundamental.
Okay.
That gave me such chills. It does every single time. And you know, I was listening to her TED Talk before this, and it just, you know, I've shared with you guys about my dad and how he was an alcoholic, you know, while I grew up when I was young. And I remember when I was 16, and it was the first time that I had ever spoken to anyone about him being an alcoholic. And it was so therapeutic. It really started the entire healing process. The second, like, the words came out of my mouth, it was like, so there was just this huge release of something that I had been holding on to, this shame that I've been holding on to for, 16 years of my life. And every time I talk about anything in my life, whether it be my family or my skin disease or how I'm feeling about anything, it just feels like this powerful healing release. It just feels so good, but I understand that it's like so not easy for people to be vulnerable. It's one of the hardest things. Taras, I know recently you kind of had a big aha about, your perception of vulnerability. I'd love for you to share that with all of us.
Yeah, so I guess it was probably like 2 weeks ago or so when I did have the aha moment, and I realized that I am not living a vulnerable life. And for me, it's very hard and difficult for me because I have always associated being vulnerable with weakness, as Brené talks about. So yeah, for me, letting my guard down, exposing myself, being truthful, which it still is a sign of weakness. And it's, you know what, it's going to take some time to like get over it.
Now, wait, you just said it is a sign of weakness. Is it?
With me, for believing it for so long, I do still believe that. So it's getting past that. It's feeling the feelings that come up and then talking yourself through it to realize that it's not. It doesn't just shut off like that.
I was going to say, it really is a process. It really is. It's such a process. But when you have that aha moment of like, oh, by sharing my story, that's not weakness. That's release, that's strength, that's processing, like all the necessary things for emotional and mental health. I didn't get that for a really long time. So Taras, I'm kind of in your camp more, where I was always like, I always thought it was strength to be like, I'm going to figure this out. And I never correlated it with hiding in the closet and shame and what if people find out, and I can't really tell them everything that's happening. Like, you can't do that,
You're also safe.
Yeah, but are you?
The less you say, the safer you are. And I think some of that also is rooted in our past, in our history, you know, with our parents and what they told us and shared with us.
Absolutely.
You know, for me, getting older, I realized like I don't need to keep certain secrets that I thought I needed to keep before. You know, it was almost like a secret because, yeah, maybe I felt safer, but it is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable when you start that process, but it yields rewards, and that's the bonus. But it's getting there,
Mm-hmm.
and getting used to doing it. You know,
I
What are
think
the
just
rewards?
yeah.
what
What are the rewards, Lee?
the rewards of being vulnerable.
Mhm.
I think that when we are vulnerable with somebody, first of all, it helps to open them up as well. And that's if they have something to share. You know, that's not everybody has a story to tell at the moment. But if somebody is ready and you are being vulnerable with them, I think it's an easier passage to a better relationship, better connectedness with people, better presence, and better authenticity.
Yeah. And
I
I think
think
you have to
people,
be ready. That's key.
yes, absolutely.
Z, I think you wanted to say something.
Well, it's interesting that what Kim shared because I think that moment for you happened when you started speaking to a counselor about what was going on for you. And growing up, my mom's a psychologist. So we were encouraged to share our feelings, the good, bad, and the ugly all the time. So I didn't associate sharing my feelings with weakness. What started building up for me in adulthood was that weakness was saying that you were wrong about something and apologizing to
Ah.
somebody for hurting them. And it wasn't until I did that self-development program with you, Kim, that I ended up, I called all the people to apologize. I think I'm still on that apology tour because, because I did. Everybody hurts people. It's like, it's not possible not to hurt people. And I expressed to my father that I had called a lot of people to apologize to them. And he goes, you don't have to like be this martyr, and throw yourself on this, like, on the train tracks or whatever. I don't know exactly how he expressed it. And I said, no, it actually feels really, really good to honestly and genuinely apologize to somebody for hurting them. And it's not like it absolves you from anything, but the fact that you can admit that you were wrong about something, that to me was like a humongous breakthrough in vulnerability, because I could not admit that I was wrong about something because it would make me
Wow.
stupid or
Right.
whatever it was, fill in the blank.
Well, I just wanted to share, just when you said that, when you started to talk, Gigi, I just realized that
Oh.
that that the person that I have needed to apologize to the most was me.
Mm.
I I wasn't aware. I mean, it's like it all goes to intention, Your Honor. It's like I didn't know that I was hiding and trying to be a lone wolf and go it alone and I got this, but it just became so heavy for me. And I think I also used to take pride in it. It was just like, I got this. I got this figured out. I know what to do. And it's like I so didn't. But forgiving myself is really a process that I'm going through now. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting to watch those layers like unfold and go, wow, Shira, you really did not know fully what you were dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shira, I have a question for you. When you were going through that and you were working towards like every single day, like, have your shit together, you could handle this, you could handle that. Did you ever feel deep down inside like, oh my God, I just need to like let it all out. I just need to talk to someone, or I just need to like, you know, not feel safe. Like, did that ever come up for you? Because that's what comes up for me all the time. Like, it's like two people in my head. Like, I'm like, you know, a little.
I have a really interesting, not story, but like answer to your question. So for the longest time, I didn't really even know that I wasn't, you know, being vulnerable or sharing my shit or just like being truthful. And I remember I finally decided to go to a therapist. And this was a couple of years ago. So like way into my adulthood / middle age. And I felt like I was telling her stuff, but I wasn't telling her everything.
Mm-hmm.
Telling her everything.
Yeah.
So it's like shit in, shit out. Like if you're not gonna like fully tell the truth to your therapist, what are you even thinking? Like you can't get to the bottom of things. And so I remember talking to my twin sister, who even with her, I didn't like share everything. So to answer your question, Taris, it really for me, so for some people, it's just this like kaboom moment where they're like, oh my God, now I have to share everything. For me, it was more like dominoes. It was more like, oh, and yeah, well, that kind of happened too, and started sharing slowly until the floodgates opened. And I was like, wow, I really have not been authentic.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I'm there. I feel like I've arrived. And I'm sure there's even more that I don't know.
So you like, I'm sorry, I'm so digging deep right now, and I'll dig into all of your lives, but I'm going through it.
Yeah.
So like, so some things you would let out, some things you would choose to be vulnerable about. And then one day, all of a sudden, everything just came out.
I felt like I was still being selective with certain things. Like, oh, well, you know, like I shared a little bit of this thing and like, yeah, my marriage isn't great in this perspective. Like with some girlfriends, like 2-3 years ago, before I even met you guys, I started sharing certain things. But deep down, like you just said, deep down, I knew something was wrong. Like something was really wrong, and I'm like, and I'm gonna figure it out. It's like no,
Uh-huh.
it
I
takes a
think,
freaking village.
yeah, I think that's the biggest aha moment, because we may feel like we're sharing and we're being vulnerable, but there are sometimes some things that we're actually still suppressing, and we're in our own denial almost.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
You know what denial is an acronym for? Don't even notice I am lying.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's really, really good.
That was a big.
Yeah. So, you know, what's really interesting for me is, you guys know me. I could talk about anything. Like, I'm very open. I'm very truthful. I believe I'm pretty authentic, but there's certain subjects that will hit me that are soft spots, and I cannot talk about it. And the reason why is because it brings up an emotion, and that emotion brings fear into me, and almost like embarrassment, like, oh my God, I feel this about this subject, or I feel like, oh my God, my heart is going to be ripped out, or like, and that's where I have my problem sharing and being vulnerable, because I feel like people could see my emotion of like, you know, burning fear.
Hey, Karis, do you want to give us an example?
Is it like one thing, or is it like a few things?
I mean,
what's funny,
I mean, I do have a really good one. It's really like, ugh, but I'll do it. I mean, so
we're going deep, girl.
I hate it. Okay. So you guys know that I just recently got into a relationship, and I haven't always been in the healthiest relationships in my life, because I was not worthy, right? I did not value myself. And it was like 2 weeks ago, I was having a very in-depth conversation, and something came up, like, you know, there was like a little itty bitty complication about, oh my God, what the heck were we talking about? I don't know, whatever. But there was a fear that came up in me, like, oh my God. Well, you guys know that. So the guy that I am dating is not from this country. And like a fear came up in me, like, oh my God, what if he leaves? Right? So I like, it came up, and I literally, my entire body flushed. I got so hot, and I'm in the middle of this conversation. I literally had to freaking jump up, and I was like, oh my God, so you're going to leave? Like, I don't even know like what happened in my head, but like, I can't believe I said that. And then I was so mortified and embarrassed. And then it like literally triggered the loss of my dad. So it's the fear of losing someone close to you who you feel you're getting so close to. And like, you know, for me, and we spoke about this, for me, it's hard for me to see that people love me and accept that. So when you have someone close to you that you're like, oh my God, this person loves me so much. And then all of a sudden you start getting irrational thoughts in your head. And then you get fear, and you're like, oh my God, what the, and like, I couldn't talk about it. I was like, I just blocked it out. I was like, no, no, no. And it took another human being to hold my hands and sit there and be like, you need to share what's going on right now. And I'm like, no, no, no. No.
And you didn't?
I did. No, I did.
You did.
Oh.
You did.
Yeah, I did. But I was also able to say, oh my God, this is it. This is the vulnerable part coming out. This is what I need to release, because I've been in this situation before. And I have to tell you, like, even with like other guys that I've dated, like this has come up, the fear of someone leaving in association with the fear of my father passing away, not being able to handle or deal with that, right? It's loss. And, you know, I had to sit and tell Ryan, you know, I need time to deal with this, because I know it's not one conversation.
Yeah.
This is a whole soul reawakening and dealing with every thought, every emotion, every feeling. Like, this is a work in progress.
So Tara, is your past experience with this been where if no one were to hold you and say, you need to talk about this, you need to express what you're feeling right now, you would just be like, nope, not talking about it. And then that would be it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I would get angry, and then I would get resentful because someone didn't drag it out of me, or because I wasn't strong enough to talk about it, or because like I associated, oh my God, I'm weak. Like, you know, like, why can't you just be rational, live your life and be like, okay, yeah, we're having fun. Like, your mind has to go to a complete other place, and there are irrational thoughts, and then it just brings up fear. So yeah, I mean, and that to me is weakness. So I don't want to talk about that with anyone. So yeah, I would block it out, but then I would be angry for blocking it out at myself, at the other person, you know, and then the cycle continues.
Just the fact that you consider it an irrational thought, even just that fact. Yeah. Because there's no such thing. Like, they're just thoughts. They come into your head, they go out of your head, but it's like labeling it irrational is already like turning it in on yourself of like, well, why can't I just have a rational way of looking at this? And
well, you know, it's human nature. It's literally human nature. I believe that the journey of our lives is to get to a place where we understand that our human nature is to go to the negative. Like, I always wondered about that. Why do we always go to the negative? Why do we criticize and judge other people? Why do we criticize and judge ourselves?
It's fear. Gigi knows.
I know. What I wanted to say was the thing that really helped me kind of
Wait, but I don't think the audience knows. You have to tell them why.
Oh, well, I don't know. Okay, so this is part of my workshop, or the first one that I did. And the idea is that our minds developed in order to keep us safe, right?
Oh, yeah.
So as a mechanism for keeping us alive, literally. So the analogy that I use is, what is that sound? It's a bear coming to kill me or eat me or whatever it is. So this is like a fear response. So anything that we have, we make it mean that we're not safe. And over time, because our lives have gotten a lot more complex than us having to be afraid of bears coming to eat us, that still hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's up to us to understand, like, oh yeah, my mind's hilarious. It does a lot of fun, kooky things, but it's really just for entertainment. It has nothing to do with what's real.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I
believe that.
What's that?
You can only live believing that. That would be great. And that's
the process. That's the journey. But what's really helped me to kind of like move into a healthier place, and this is such a duh, but like, there's nobody on the planet that doesn't have some kind of really shitty, embarrassing, horrible, secretive, whatever in their life. There's nobody. You can't get away unscathed. So it's kind of like the purpose is to share our stories and to help each other. And look, there are some people who are vulnerable to like the nth degree where you're like TMI, you know. But really that's part of the journey to catch yourself and go, wow, like we're here to help each other. So when you're telling me that Ryan held you and said, you know, tell me, talk to me, calm down, tell me your story, like, oh my God, how beautiful is that?
Yeah. And I think he's also a really vulnerable person. So for me, it helped me be like, oh my God, this guy's walls are down, his guard is down. Like you, and I felt safe. You know what I mean? Like I've had people ask me what's going on, talk to me. And it's a matter of feeling safe. Like if I don't feel that what I put out is going to be taken in a good, positive way, yeah, I'm not sharing.
We're afraid to be judged. I think we're afraid to be judged and look weak or feel weak. And we are our own worst judge in that way, I think. But
and also vulnerability isn't always sharing like a deep, dark secret with someone, because we do all have secrets. We all do have something we don't want to look bad if someone knows, or you know, you guys know that recently I had a huge journey with money and trying to get, you know, back on track from being in a negative place to a much more healthier place. And honestly, I got there through talking about it. Like, you know, I always say talking is medicine. That's like my tagline. But it really is like just through talking about it, because then people can give you advice, people can listen, you know, whatever it may be can be so helpful.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just really, you know, it could be through being like, I know someone who's really funny and he goes on stage and he, you know, makes jokes and he speaks, and, you know, Taris, I'm talking about Steve Rizzo. He's amazing. And yes, he's like so natural at it and everything, but you know, in the beginning of his career, he'd get on stage and he didn't know people were going to laugh. Like that's just as being vulnerable as me sharing my money issues with you guys. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different ways to be vulnerable. It's not just sharing something really, really dark.
tons of ways. I look at it as getting out of your comfort zone, or my comfort zone. If you are comfortable about it, that is a good way to grow, and become a little more comfortable
with being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
comfortable with being,
which is super, really, really hard, I think, personally.
One of the things that I've noticed though is that like I've started getting to a point with like relationships in general that I like just can't have small talk conversations. Like if we can't like have something more significant to say to one another, I'm not engaged anymore. It's very interesting that I've gotten to that point where like practice makes perfect kind of. And it's funny that you mentioned TMI, Shira, because there was somebody that I was dating and I had said, I want someone who can be honest and vulnerable with me. And they started sharing everything, like, and my ex and that and this, that, and the other thing. And at first I was like really taken aback and I was like, whoa, dude, TMI, like, I don't need to know all that. And then I was just like, wait a minute, yes, I do. This is awesome. I know like what the baseline is, and now we can have a conversation about it. And no, I'm not used to it, but just because I'm not used to it doesn't make it wrong or bad. It's just a totally different kind of foundation. And that I think is where I'm headed in terms of like creating connections and relationships with people based on much more than like, it's nice out today, or like,
that's what
I got a new dress.
And I equate that with just getting older. You know, the older and more mature I've become and more I've grown, I need more quality in my conversations.
Yeah.
So it's actually really funny because when you were saying that, Z, I was laughing inside, because a lot of the unhealthy relationships that I developed, that I realized I walked into, was I would look for people who wouldn't talk too much, because if they talked too much and told me too much about themselves, that I would have to tell them about me. So I was like, how closed off is this conversation? Awesome. You know, like, this is great. So I get that.
That's perfect.
for people, I'm gonna go ahead. I think this is a great place to wrap. I'm just curious for people who, because a lot of people really struggle with vulnerability. It's not easy. It is not easy at all, especially if, like you said, Tyrus, if you don't have people in your life that make you feel safe, that makes it even harder. So I'm just curious, before we wrap, is there anything that, if people want to be more vulnerable, if they want to open up more and share more and just, release more information to, and let's say they don't have a lot of people in their life who they feel safe doing that with. Is there anything that you guys can contribute to, what are ways that we could all be more vulnerable?
So I know for me, it's all about the healing process. So baby steps, it's healing. And I've been healing for many, many years. So doing that, and also just like believing in yourself and having courage that you have more to give to society. Like we're all here for a purpose. Find your purpose, write it down, sit with it, be okay with it, believe it, and then go with it.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think that the more vulnerable we're able to be, like kind of like tied into what I was saying before about connecting with other people, I feel like the more I have shared about my life and my adversities, people start to share their stories as well. So you're kind of creating a safe environment for them to be able to, to heal as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like it works all around.
Good begets good.
Well, and it's about recognizing when somebody is a safe space to share. Like for me, when somebody else is sharing, I had in the past been like, okay, great. Like I can listen to you. That's awesome. But like sharing in return is like a good baby step in being vulnerable. That's all.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I agree with all of you guys. I think that's the perfect place to wrap this episode. Thank you so much for all of your sharing. So if you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and be sure to let us know if you have any topic requests or questions by commenting below. So we'll see you soon. Thank you guys so much, and stay safe, everyone.
Bye. Love you guys.